Good afternoon. This is the Truth Police with Andy and Tim. Today we have a very special report later on with Flight 370. We've got a clip from the hacking group Anonymous, which will tell you basically what they think is going on with the plane. We hear the full story in a 40-minute clip, off and on with some news stories. It's going to be a start to finish, but 2 or 3 very good videos, and I think these are more near the truth. There we go. So welcome to the Truth Police. It's Andy and it's Tim.
Thanks for listening to the Truth Police Live with Andy Teacher from the UK and Timothy Spearman from Canada. Mondays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 5 p.m. UK time. Find the Truth Police radio show on Facebook. Visit Tim's website at www.shakesaspear.com or visit www.lulu.com. Search for Timothy Spearman and find his book Sailing the Seven Seas, Butterfly Dreams, and Odds on Favourite. Visit the station's website www.freedomtalkradio.co.uk or email the show at freedomtalkradio2013@gmail.com or Skype us at Freedom Talk Radio 1. Thanks for listening to the Truth Police.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is freedomtalkradio.net, and you are listening to Freedom Talk Radio.
From beautiful Saline in southeastern Michigan.
Around the world.
This is the 2009 Top 10 Webcam in the World winner. This is SETV.
Yeah, very warm welcome to the Truth Police. It's Andy and Tim. Hello, my friend. How are you today?
Great, Andy. Nice to be here with you as always. Finding this situation with the Malaysian flight getting stranger and stranger. Deep Water, a loose follow-up to hit horror movie Bait 3D, tells the story of a flight that mysteriously crashes into a remote stretch of the ocean on its way to China. Arclight Films says it's putting pre-production of its upcoming film Deepwater on hold due to some uncomfortable similarities between the project and the mysterious disappearance of this Malaysian flight. Out of sensitivity to the Malaysian flight situation, we've decided to put it on pause for now, says Gary Hamilton, managing director of ArcLight at the Asian Industry Trade Show Film Art in Hong Kong. Deepwater tells the story of a flight that mysteriously crashes in a remote stretch of ocean on its way to China. Crash survivors then have to fend off killer sharks. Yeah, I guess it would be rather a public relations disaster if I had a film about some flight that crashes and then they have to fend off killer sharks, the surviving passengers. Oh, man.
Well, later on, I'll give you some wow factors about the missing flight. It's all confirmed and evidence. It's just all came in within the last 3 hours. So we've got the anonymous short clip. We've got a clip about Garcia, Diago, and the theory that it's there. We've got a brief introduction what's been going on and what's happening now. But we've also got coming out in the news today in the last 2. Well, I think it's probably came out yesterday late, but it's been updated today, and we now have evidence that one of the passengers is definitely 100% alive. And you heard it on Freedom Talk Radio with the Truth Police, probably before anybody else, because it's only just happening. Yeah. So, do you have any other news at the moment?
Yeah. Well, this story goes on. It says Malaysia flyer's girlfriend, possible breakthrough, throw it all up in the air again. The film's tagline is, in early promotional material, reads, survivors of a plane crash face terror beyond reckoning as the plane is starting to sink into a bottomless abyss, and soon discover they're surrounded by the deadliest natural-born killers on Earth. On March 8th, Malaysia Airline Flight MH370 disappeared from civilian radar screens a little less than an hour after taking off from Kuala Lumpur for Beijing with 239 people on board. No confirmation sighting of the plane or its remains has been made since. It's not the first time that Deepwater's director, Alistair Grierson, has helmed a movie marked by a bizarre art imitating life quality. Interesting. Okay, so we need to do a little research on this director, Alistair Grierson, because we've seen too many times that the Illuminati or the Luciferian cabal, whatever you want to call them, the Satanists, telegraph their message related to future plans and future events through their entertainment industry. I'm not going to say through art, because I don't see it as art when you're co-opting artistic entertainment for the purpose of using it as a rehearse drill for future acts of terror. That's not art. I guess it is. I guess it's psychopathic art, but it's not my idea of art. Sanctum, the project for which he is best known, is about an underwater cave diving exhibition that turns into a watery, heart-pounding catastrophe. It was released in Australia 2 weeks before Queensland and northern New South Wales were hit by devastating floods in 2011. Yeah, okay. Interesting. So, it's a little bit like Hurricane Pam being staged in the week that led up to Hurricane Katrina, which placed FEMA exactly on location in New Orleans to plant the explosives in the levee wall of Lake Pontchartrain. This film, Sanctum, anticipates the future event regarding a devastating flood in Australia, and it was made in 2011, or at least released, rather. Its release date was 2011, the very same year that the devastating floods occurred. I'm still on this. If you want to interrupt, Andy, please do.
No, carry on. If you can type into the box that man you mentioned, that name, and might find something on him.
Hang on a sec. I'm going to, first of all, give you the link to the article itself, and then I will type his name. Okay, and where is the fellow's name? Oh yeah, Alistair Grierson. Hang on. There you go.
Cheers.
Okay. Then story goes on. Malaysia Airlines Flight local news station apologizes for lost poster tweet. Originally developed as a sequel to shark horror flick Fate 3D, which became a surprise hit in China in 2012 after it was sold to the territory on a flat fee basis, grossing $24 million in its first 3 weeks of release. The project received development funding from Screen Australia and was targeted for a budget of $25 million. The writers of Fate 3D, Shane Armstrong and Shane Krause, drafted a sequel script, but the project later morphed into Deep Water, with Greason boarding as director along with additional writer Terrence Malloy. It was expected that the film would again aim for a China release, or even a Chinese co-production partner. ArcLight sources say they are fast-tracking development of a sci-fi adaptation of the classic Joseph Conrad novel Heart of Darkness, while they put Deep Water on ice while waiting to see how the Malaysian flight situation unfolds. Deep Water is the second APAC-based film project to make a pivot out of sympathy for those impacted by Flight MH370. Well, I've come across some information that indicates that the Chinese have planned to invade Australia. Of course, we know they're running out of room and they have no space and they definitely need territory. But it's come my way, that information, that they are or have had in the past plans to do so. So could it be that this guy's cozying up to the Chinese, this particular director, and that he was involved in this film Sanctum, which anticipated the massive floods in Queensland and northern New South Wales? Was that designed to soften Australia up using weather weaponry? Now, there's conflicting scientific debate on whether it can be deployed as a weather weapon or whether there's some other form of technology involved in pumping up and steering storms. I remember when I was doing a little research on Hurricane Katrina, I came across some information that suggested that they deploy a laser from a satellite and can actually not only pump up the storm but steer it that way. And the commentator Jim McCain, I think his name was, claimed that he developed the technology originally for the U.S. Air Force and then realized that they were abusing the technology to create artificial storm anomalies, so he then gave the technology to, he claims, Russia and other governments. So I don't dismiss any of this. He had a radio show. He didn't seem like a shill, and I downloaded a lot of information from what he was claiming on radio. In fact, I made a transcript of the entire radio show because I found it very interesting. Malaysia and U.S. handling of Flight 370 search sparks anger in Chinese media. Chinese director Vincent Zhao's 3D action thriller Last Flight, starring Ed Westwick and Sue Su, has toned down its marketing campaign in response to the missing Malaysian plane. The film tells the story of an old Boeing 747 that takes off for its last red-eye flight from a small Pacific island and is hit by unusual events. While the passengers panic, the captain and the chief flight attendant investigate and try to regain control of the plane. The film's producer and distributor, Shanghai Media Group, canceled the glitzy March 21st premiere event it had planned for Beijing. Well, that's interesting. That's 322. March 22nd is 322, which is the lodge number of the Skull and Bone Society at Yale University. It's known to be a major occult number, 322. This is 321, granted. That's one day before 322. But the March spring equinox, March 21st to March 22nd, is a major occult date with the Antichrist. Sorry, but it is, Andy. It's a major occult festival date for the Satanists. So that's an interesting date to choose for your film premiere. Anyway, they canceled the film premiere for March 21st that they had planned for Beijing, where many of the missing passengers were from. Reps from the company instead decided to roll out the film in Shanghai, Nanjing, and Shenzhen with more understated opening events. Interesting. So there's a lot of films that somehow anticipate a very similar event, all coming out within a similar time frame. I guess the public is just more alerted to this type of predictive programming used by the entertainment industry, which is in collusion with the military intelligence agencies. I mean, Hollywood, look at where you have the entertainment industry based. You've got Hollywood for the United States, and you've got Pinewood for the UK. And I know we have Pinewood Studios here in Toronto, which is, a subsidiary of the UK division. But I mean, clearly Satanists have traditionally worshipped in a grove of trees. So Pinewood, Hollywood, there's always been a tight relationship between the entertainment industry and military intelligence. How far back in history can we see this? You know what? As far back as you care to go. The Medes, which were active magicians in Media. This is where we get the word media from. So basically, as far back as you care to go, witchcraft and sorcery and entertainment and the arts have always had a close and intimate relationship. And you and I have discussed many times the relationship the Shakespeare plays have with state propaganda and secrecy and the effort to create a frontman so that the state-sponsored artists that were behind the project could remain behind the stage curtain and never came out to take their bow. Instead, they got the frontman, Will Shakespeare, to take all the bows for them and systematically made fun of him through not only the Shakespeare plays, but plays by Ben Jonson and others that were participating in the whole operation. Wow, interesting.
Very interesting. All I found out about Alistair Grierson is he's just a director, really, of different films. When you Google Antichrist, Satanist, Rothschild, there are links, but nothing linking him to a proper story. So They're sort of hidden in the background. But he has, I don't know if he's finished this one yet, he's doing Mary, Mother of Christ, another film, which this was in late 2012. He was sort of going to be doing this movie. And he's using the Israeli actress Odie Rush has been cast in the title role, which other actors will include Julia Ormond and Peter O'Toole. The press release announcing the deal says that producers Mary Allora and Sean Williamson are currently negotiating with one of England's most famous Academy Award winners to play Herod. The release also couldn't resist describing the biblical tale in Hollywood terms, claiming that Mary, Mother of Christ, is considered to be the biblical prequel to the story of the Passion of the Christ. Filming is scheduled to start in summer 2013. The film will be marketed to faith communities with the help of controversial television preacher Joel Osteen, pastor of the Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas. That's all I can find out really about him. Should we, if you want, we can continue the Flight MH370 and wrap it all up really in one bit.
Sure. Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm continuing to get the story together there. JimStoneFreelance.com posted an actual photo of the Flight 370 clone that was stored at a hangar near at a Tel Aviv airport. So the picture was originally found on this Hebrew forum. He's actually got the link for it. And it was promptly removed, and it cannot be found there anymore. But that reminds me of Gelatin, the B thing, the exhibition that was held on the 91st floor of Tower Number 1 of the World Trade Center, and they pulled all the photos and sketches from their published sketchbook from their website after George Freund posted their pictures and established a bit of a blog on it, on his blog, Conspiracy Cafe blog, and then I did a full-length article about it and posted it on my website, and then they eventually took down all of the documentary evidence related to their art exhibition being held on the 91st floor of Tower Number 1 from their website because it garnered too much attention and word began to spread. And I know that when I mentioned it and brought it up on our show with Fitzer, he had even heard of it, so it must have gone viral if he picked up on it. Unless he has connections that we don't know about. I still think he's wrong about the 3 railway hobos, and I was a little shocked and surprised that he contradicted the claim that they were who I said they were. To me, that guy was a spitting image of Frank Sturgis, the one who's in the front of the railway hobos photo. And as for the E. Howard Hunt wearing the hat in the background, I think it's him. I don't know why he insisted it was these other agents. It makes me suspicious of him, Andy. I'm sorry, but it does. Because, what's his name? Jesse Ventura, he had a show about it, and he claimed that they were the railway hobos were E. Howard Hunt and Frank Sturgis and all that. He supported that claim, and Spitzer's supposed to be colleagues with Jesse Ventura, so I'm a little weirded out by all that. But anyway, when translated, other people ridicule the poster for taking a picture in a forbidden area. Malaysian Airlines logo has been removed from the tail, but the general paint scheme remains. Let's hope we don't see this one make a cameo appearance somewhere with Allah Akbar painted on the tail. Yeah, I mean, this is what Jim Stone has posted, or whoever has posted at his website, JimStoneFreelance.com/Hebrew4.html. And then he writes, I have confirmed that it arrived at Tel Aviv with a blank white tail which was repainted before it left America. Plain history. It was first leased by Malaysian Airlines, then purchased by GA Telus, and 5 full years before the absolute minimum lifespan was scheduled to be scrapped for parts, which makes no sense at all, since it could have flown for at least 10 more years. And then, for some mysterious reason, it showed up in France only to end up in Tel Aviv. This is where it all gets odd. Why would it be slated for scrapping in America, while still far too new, only to end up in Israel just sitting there? Most probably this plane was indeed purchased for the reason most people suspect, and the repainted tail was an inconvenience. Why pull it from the form it posted on if this picture was meaningless? Alright, fair enough. And I don't know. I know that Jim Stone used to be an NSA agent. That's what I've learned. And I don't think that used to be is possible in the intelligence world. I don't know if it is, but I'm inclined to be suspicious of anyone who used to be. I know a lot of used to be agents when I was in South Korea that were around me. One of them was a professor at one of the universities where I taught. And his story to me was that he used to be, but then found that since he was spying on his own colleagues that he couldn't justify it, and it bothered his conscience, it troubled his conscience, so he stopped working for the CIA, the American CIA. Well, sorry. He was in contact with me while I was in Korea, and he dropped me like a rock after I left. So I would rather assume that he was still working for them. And he behaved with immunity type arrogance, as though nothing could ever impugn his good standing as a professor. That's pretty much the sense I got from him. Although I did like him, I am still suspicious of him. And then I knew this other fellow who claimed to be former U.S. Naval Intelligence. And he was quite brilliant, and where he got the training to be able to know so many languages, I just find it very difficult to believe that one person could learn that many languages from so many different traditions and backgrounds without some help of artificial intelligence technology. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he just had this incredible gift. But he knew several North American Indian native languages. He knew several European languages, and he also knew Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. Now, it seemed to me that he was learning Korean and picking it up while living there. So he just may have a gift for it, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm always suspicious of these people because you never know whether they're shills or whether they're real or whether they have some hidden agenda or whatever. One thing about us, Andy, is I think most people can see that we're quite real because we make our mistakes and we're quite open and honest about it. We're just doing our best and fumbling along. Sometimes we do really well and sometimes we seem to mess up, but at least people would have a sense, I would hope, that we're real. Anyway, what have you got? You've got something, right?
Yeah, it's a bit of a long one because rather than speaking about it, I decided to cheat a little, and I've got everything all in sort of audio. It does take about 30 minutes, but I think unless we do one show where everything's in one bit, rather than going, every up and down everywhere, I think people would understand a bit better. So we're going to do the mystery of the flight MH370, and I'll probably read the news articles out in between. So I'll probably do the first one just to plant the seeds in people's heads. So remember, flight MH370, there was Texas-based company who lost 20 employees on the flight. Austin-based Freescale Semiconductor lost 20 employees on board doomed flight MH370. Freescale Semiconductor spokesperson J.C. Zuniga said, "The news of the 20 workers and the missing plane has been difficult for the company and its employees. 20 Freescale staff was on the flight. IBM employee." This is very relevant to later on. The IBM employee also missing after Malaysia jetliner crashed into the South China Sea on Saturday, March the 8th. So it says on here anyway. We know at the moment it's not crashed, although the government probably assumes it has. But anyway, the first clip really is a summary of, the mystery of the flight. So the first clip and the second clip, unfortunately, is 11 minutes, but I think it's all very relevant to the ending. The anonymous update, the actual real person on the island of Diago Garcia, who's managed to get a bit of information out. The only problem is with that, the information does come, one of the clips does come from that guy you mentioned. Is it Jim Stone? Mm-hmm. And if I can explain what he's put up on his website, and it's up to people to either believe it or disagree with it anyway. So the mystery of Flight 370 starts now.
Calls for transparency over the missing Malaysian jetliner have come from all over, but the investigation has only grown foggier. And while many are asking how did it happen and who's responsible, the more urgent question is, where is the plane and its passengers? Adrian Arsenault now on the mysterious case of Flight MH370.
March 7th, thanks to an early morning rain, the steamy heat of Kuala Lumpur was a little less oppressive. It was a hazy 31 degrees. A new city for 50-year-old American Philip Wood, about to begin a new life with his girlfriend. He'd bought a last-minute ticket to go help her pack up their place in Beijing. Busy man, but a bit confused that day. He thought the flight was the next night. At home in Beijing, an excited Sarah Bajic caught the mistake and set her boyfriend straight. So he texted her.
Wow, crazy. So busy, didn't even realize. Tonight? Would have missed my flight.
Go rush, love. He did, as you do. Plans were shifting too for a group of 24 Chinese artists who'd been in Kuala Lumpur for days, promoting relations between the two countries. They'd been stuck inside at their exhibit in this hall, but the break in heat sent them all outside for a last-minute tour, and for this, a huge celebratory lunch. Duck soup, steamed fish, braised pork.
Hi everyone, this is a YouTube video that I've made.
It's also believed, a day of much rushing for Zahari Ahmed Shah.
This video is to be used.
MH370's deeply experienced pilot, the man who built his own flight simulator, who fancied himself a home repairs expert and teacher.
But this is the cheapest solution that you can use.
Also, a supporter of opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim. Shah is thought to have attended Ibrahim's court hearing that day, at which the leader was sent back to jail for sodomy. That can't have made him happy, but ever the professional, he knew he had a flight, was to be joined by a young, skilled, but less experienced co-pilot, Farik Ab Hamid. They didn't work together much, hadn't asked to be put together. But they were a team that night, there in the security check at the Kuala Lumpur airport. Can't read much of anything into this. It is a spectacular airport, huge, high-tech, pretty, if that's possible. The artists had driven there especially early, were on their way to it by 8 p.m. This is the last photo of the group, just standing around, waiting to go home. Time to spare. The hurried Philip Wood probably wasn't as organized, but back in her Beijing neighborhood, his girlfriend was on a schedule. At 8:05 p.m. from home, she updates him.
All prepped except my clothes. Kitchen, bar, knickknacks, set out, cleaned, ready to pack.
He may have been en route to the airport when he responded,
I'm ready to be there to help. Understand. Tomorrow I'll rub your back. Thank you for working so hard. You're greatly appreciated and loved.
Then, around midnight, as Philip Wood would have been settling into his seat, she answers,
Thank you, baby.
That is the last communication we know of to or from any of the passengers. The plane, 239 souls on board, but hardly full, 36 empty seats, including some belonging to those who missed their flight. At 12:41 a.m., 6 minutes late on that heavy, now humid night, MH370 took off for Beijing. It should have been so routine. There are 59 flights a week from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, just as many coming back. A busy, typical flight path. But what was about to happen to Malaysian Airlines that night is what's known in the world of crisis management as a black swan event, completely unpredictable, a huge impact and a shock that's hard to recover from if you don't handle it well. Well, all this time later, among the few details that are clear is that the handling of the disappearance of MH370 has not gone well. Families waiting in both Beijing and Kuala Lumpur want clarity, say they've been getting only confusion. From the outset, Malaysian authorities were slow to respond. It was the Chinese who first started talking publicly. They actually announced the disappearance. When Malaysian authorities finally stepped to the microphones, early statements were bizarre.
There have been speculations that the aircraft has landed in Nanning. We are working to verify the authenticity of the report and others.
And consider this description of the passengers using stolen passports.
It is confirmed now that they are not Asian-looking males. Do you know a footballer by the name of Bartoli? He's an Italian. Do you know how he looks like? Bartoli. Balotelli.
This is Mario Balotelli, and these are the passengers in question. What was he talking about suggesting they look alike? Another misleading moment. More has been misleading than has been clear.
And as far as we are concerned, we are equally puzzled as well.
Agreed upon timelines for the first hour and a half are thin and have taken these 11 days to cobble together with leaks and sparse confirmations. Here goes. 1:07 a.m. The transponder sends back an automated message saying all's okay. 1:19 a.m., the co-pilot signs off with "all right, good night," leaving Malaysian airspace. 1:21 a.m., the transponder stops working. We now know that at 1:28 a.m., Thai radar saw an unidentified blip along an unexpected westward track, but did nothing about it. It took 11 days for that news to emerge. Around the same time of morning, Vietnamese civil aviation see what they think was MH370 heading westward. Twice they contact the Malaysians. It takes days to hear anything back. 2:15 a.m., Malaysian military radar spots an unidentified blip here at Pulau Perak in the Strait of Malacca. Again, this took days to learn. So much wasted time. Yes, families threw water bottles at Malaysian officials. They've talked of suing, of going on hunger strikes, and every waking moment they wonder. The world is running scenarios. Here's one. If this was a plane in trouble, sort of smoke in the cockpit trouble, where could a pilot go? All are trained to know their exit routes. Here's a compilation of options that night. Some 634 runways with roughly 1,500 meters of landing strip, what a 777 would need. Problem is, start eliminating some for distance and difficulty, say mountains in the way, and options shrink. A theory of a Canadian pilot points right here to an airstrip on Pulau Langkawi on the west coast of Malaysia. It's where he says his gut tells him good pilots would go. It's also directly in line with the plane's strange westward turn. Chris Goodfellow accurately described it as a 3,900-meter landing strip with an approach over water at night, no obstacles. Simple, so smart, but the nearby waters have been reportedly searched. Nothing. Seems the plane just kept going. Where to and why, and how would we know? Ground and air radar are key. Watch this. First a map of the known civilian radar zones where the plane first went missing, and then military radar take over. These are what we believe to be the region's capabilities. It's vague because there are countries that want to keep secret military assets and information secret. The public may not be told what they have or saw. And yes, count that as a frustration for Malaysian officials.
I can confirm that we have received some radar data, but we are not at liberty to release information from other countries. I appeal to all our partners to continue volunteering any of and all information that could help us with the investigation and the search for MH370.
The Indians, by the way, have said they didn't see anything, and add that they may have turned off the radar in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands that weekend because they didn't think they'd need them. And no nation saw fit to scramble jets to intercept the plane, that supposed unidentified blip at least a few saw. Messy, this matter of a missing plane, especially in a region that is a geopolitical puzzle. 11 days and a search zone almost as big as Canada. 26 countries now part of the hunt because they have to be, because the last source of information on the plane is disturbingly vague. The view from space, that's where the information's coming from, not the space station, which took these images of the area a few months ago, but from a single satellite. An Inmarsat satellite, a geostationary one 36,000 kilometers up. Somehow, for several hours, it recorded a type of handshake from MH370, and it knows it's that plane, apparently, because every handshake is unique. Based on the angle of the signal and the distance from the Earth, Inmarsat believe the plane must have traveled along one of two specific lines, so evident on a map, so horrifyingly vast and vague back on Earth. You're always tricking us, lying to us, yell the families. Can you blame them for thinking that? Can you blame them either for deep down believing that every moment, every resource is scouring the planet? While it's true some nations are working exhaustively to search, there are also scenes like this.
As you can see, all of these aircraft are sitting on the ground.
A tarmac in Kuala Lumpur, and all those expensive, sophisticated search planes just sat there for part of this week, as the government of Indonesia had not yet issued permission to fly over its territory. And for their part, the Indians, the Thais, the Japanese, and the Indonesian ships and aircraft were idle all yesterday. The delay? Waiting for clear instructions from Malaysia. all as hazy as a Beijing morning. It's dawn when the Malaysian Airlines flight from Kuala Lumpur is scheduled to land there every day. Even that early, the airport is full. Was full on Saturday, March the 8th. Families waiting for MH370. They still wait, and really, they don't know much more than they did that first awful morning. Adrienne Arsenault, CBC News, Toronto.
Yeah, and obviously we don't know for sure what's going on, but just have a little sort of think about this one now before I play the next clip. Edward Snowden, by the way, worked for Booz Allen Hamilton, which is owned by the Carlyle Group, which is owned by the Bin Laden family, who invested in Carlyle just before the 9/11. Booz Allen Hamilton was then purchased by the Carlyle Group. Booz Allen is the main contractor for the NSA. The Carlyle Group also purchased Freescale Semiconductor for $17.6 billion. Does that have anything to do, by the way? Now, you'll have to think about this one, listeners. Vladimir Putin, Russia, issues an international arrest warrant for Rothschild and Soros. Vladimir Putin, now in full control of Russia as Prime Minister, wishes to build a strong Christian nation in a televised Christmas message. This is an up-to-date actual story on the 28th of March this year, 2014, but the message was in January 2008. The Russian Orthodox Church contributes to the promotion of moral values in society. One should not completely draw a line between the culture and the church. Of course, by law in our country, the church is separate from the state, but in the soul and the history of our people, it's all together. It always has been and always will be. Russia will make the US reflect upon what they allowed Rothschild to do to their own country. So when you see protests against Putin now, keep in mind it is probably staged by the Rothschilds trying to control Russia once again. Putin issues arrest warrant for financial terrorist George Soros. Financial terrorist and Hungarian bank Dick even, convicted felon George Soros. Russian intelligence has fingered Soros for using cross-collateralized compounded Swedish and Danish foreign currency derivatives for the purpose of an attack on the Russian stock market. Soros' use of these cross-collateralized compounded derivatives utilising Luxembourg banks violates the terms of the Basel European Union Banking Agreement. The thing that should give pause to the heads of state Western is like Putin did in freeing Russia from those who wanted to bring the total economic and social collapse and beat up and jail all those who have ever tried. Are they influencing Putin? The fact is that Putin is loyal to Russia and its people and never allow anyone, even when he is in command in that nation, to sell out and to let his country into the clutches of the New World Order. For this, he ordered to issue an international arrest warrant against George Soros, who has been caught red-handed as he prepared to send financial aid to what is called opposition in Russia, which recently made the streets in dozens of thousands of people telling lies and misinformation, cheating during the election. Now Mr. Soros has little room to continue his games with speculation that has devastated the entire global financial system, in collaboration Rothschild, Rockefeller and other jackals. Putin's speech, which was officially issued by the Russian authorities, today has made public the following statement, which goes on basically he's going to arrest Soros and he wants him as soon as he can. So is that anything to do, I wonder, with this flight? Now there's certainly something else if I can find him very quickly. Now this is from James or Jim Stone, freelance.com, and this is Blockbuster. This is accurate. The website reads, believe it or not, hijacked IBM engineer successfully dialed out of Diego Garcia. Rush update. This has now been positively confirmed. It's accurate. 2 aspects of this story now precede the original post. Questions surrounding this article are now posted below. The man claimed to be blindfolded when he sent his message. When the American military blindfolds someone, it is accomplished by putting a bag over the head that is locked. You can't get it off. This left the engineer's hands free. This would have made it possible for him to pull his iPhone 5, a fact confirmed by the EXIF data, out of his butt as stated, and use the voice command ability of the iPhone to just talk to it, to log in and post a message. This explains why he sent a black photo. He could not see what he was sending. He just knew he snapped a photo and sent whatever got taken. The coordinates, when the coordinates are added to the fact that the photos, EXIF data does not match the Google coordinates or any other coordinates for Diego Garcia that are posted online, but is still within the boundaries of Diego Garcia. It proves that no one just pulled those coordinates off the web or out of a hat. It helps confirm that this was not just a hoax because the coordinates are exact to wherever on Diego Garcia the iPhone was when it took the photo. Original post follows. IBM engineer taken from hijacked Flight 370 got a selfie out to the internet. The update, Philip Wood is a technical storage director for IBM Malaysia. This story is 100% legit. Here is his LinkedIn account. He posts. This image, which appears black, was posted as taken in a dark cell by the IBM engineer. The picture is black because the cell was too dark. But a critical piece of information and evidence really was embedded in the EXIF data. The coordinates to Diego Garcia where the picture was taken, and it's real. This is not a hoax. The coordinates in the picture indicate the photo was taken within 3 miles of what Google officially gives for Diego Garcia. Now, rather than actually reading any more of that, what you do is right-click the image and you go to the properties, and within them properties somewhere you can find the coordinates that can only be done from a cell phone, iPhone in particular, because it's linked to the tracking devices around the world. And the example the guy gives in this, let's imagine somebody stole your phone and then you take a picture of someone. Well, the police will be able to find that phone or its location because, you know, Google and all that keeps the coordinates. So that's amazing. So that technically, because the picture's black, means this IBM engineer, his phone, at least his phone is in Diego Garcia. Now I've got a clip now linking Diego Garcia. It's a bit long, but it explains what Diego Garcia and the political issues about the island, which is a US military base, has with this story.
The Indian Ocean island of Diego Garcia is home to a U.S. airbase that launched the most powerful bombers that were key to winning the war in Iraq. But it was also once home to an indigenous population who was summarily uprooted and shipped against their will to another island 1,200 miles away. So today, only military personnel and the workers they imported are allowed onto Diego Garcia. No outsiders can get in. But the real story is finally surfacing. On a string of beautiful coral islands in the middle of the Indian Ocean, America has built one of its most important strategic bases, Diego Garcia. Today it's home to B-52s, and now for the first time stealth bombers as well, all just 7 hours flying time from downtown Baghdad. Supply ships as big as skyscrapers, loaded with tanks, weapons and ammunition for Marine and Army brigades, gathered there before the order was given to invade Iraq. Back in the 70s, when Diego Garcia became central to American military operations, James Schlesinger, who's now in the private sector, was Secretary of Defense.
It is critical to American security and has steadily grown more critical. Indeed, it is one of the wisest investment of government funds that we have seen over the last 3 or 4 decades.
And few would disagree. 4 decades ago, when the United States and the Soviet Union were racing to get footholds in this region, the U.S. discovered Diego Garcia, a coral island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. The Americans had asked the British, their longtime allies who still had colonies in the region, to find them an uninhabited island for their base.
It's always preferable not to have inhabitants around. It reduces any risk of intelligence operations against the base and the possibility of sabotage.
But there was just one problem. There were inhabitants on Diego Garcia, and they had been living there for more than 200 years.
The children here do not have all the toys that town children play with.
This old British newsreel shows a thriving community of about 2,000 people who worked on the island's coconut plantations. But the British didn't see that as a problem. To make way for the U.S. base, they simply moved all the inhabitants 1,200 miles away to other tropical islands, Mauritius and the Seychelles. Back then, when the island was a British colony, Marcel Moulinet managed the coconut plantation. It was he who was ordered to ship the people out. In order to have their base, what did the Americans want you to do with the island?
Total evacuation. They wanted no indigenous people there.
How did you evacuate?
Well, when the final time came and the ships were chartered, they weren't allowed to take anything with them except a suitcase of their clothes. The ships were small and they could take nothing else, no furniture, nothing.
The people of Diego Garcia say they left paradise and landed in hell when they were dumped here in the urban slums of Mauritius. They had brought no possessions, and as islanders who had lived off fishing and farming, they had no real professional skills. No one helped them resettle or paid for the homes they lost. They simply were forced to become squatters in a foreign land. Before the final evacuation, the British had cut off the ships that carried food and medicine to Diego Garcia. Jeanette Alexis's family was one of the last to leave.
My father was told that we had to leave the island because the Americans were moving in and it wasn't safe to remain on the island anymore.
They say they didn't force people off the island.
I mean, if you stop feeding me, if you don't give me work, you bring in sheep and you tell me that this is the last trip, otherwise if I stay back, I will starve to death. What other force do you need to get me out?
The islanders say the other force that got them out was fear, when British officials ordered their pets to be exterminated. They were gassed with exhaust fumes from American military vehicles. It's hard to believe that people would do that.
Yes, in fact it did happen, and you can imagine the pressure that put on the population there. It was just terrible for people.
When you boarded that ship, finally, for your last trip out of Diego Garcia, what do you remember?
We were crying. We were hanging onto our mother's skirt, crying, because although we were very young, we understood that we were leaving something very, very valuable behind, and that was our home.
And for the next 30 years, the world never knew what had happened to Diego Garcia's original people. No outsiders are allowed onto Diego Garcia, so this secret stayed hidden until one of the exiled islanders, Olivier Boncoul, started organizing his community. He was angry by the years of misery that his people had been forced to endure. 3 of his own brothers drank themselves to death, dispirited by their poverty and unemployment. One of his sisters was so homesick that she committed suicide.
And it's very sad. This is why I will never give up. All the difficulty is because of the US and the UK. They have turned people's life into a nightmare.
So 3 years ago, Olivier travelled to London to take the British government to court. His big break came when he and his lawyer, Richard Gifford, found secret documents that had recently been declassified that described the agreement between the United States and British governments to build the base on Diego Garcia.
Here we have the legal expert in the Foreign Office, in which he's got a paragraph headed, Maintaining the Fiction.
The fiction that Diego Garcia had no native people. These British documents show colonial officials thought that no one would notice if they deported the islanders.
Were you surprised when you started digging at the memos you found between the Americans and the British?
I find it rather shameful, yes. Here we have a rather interesting little memorandum of the British government. There will be no indigenous population except seagulls.
Another British document confirms that evicting the people and leaving the island to the seagulls was done at the request of the United States. It reads, "The United States government will require the removal of the entire population of the atoll by July."
The Americans telling that to the British?
Yes, and the British were only too happy to oblige.
And what did the British get in return for providing the Americans a population-free island? Polaris missiles for their submarines. The U.S. reduced the price by $14 million, or 5 million British pounds.
Well, you have to understand that the stiff upper lips hardly quivered at the idea of moving the population.
Didn't care.
So £5 million was a massive incentive compared with a very modest conscience problem.
Uncovering this paper trail brought Gifford and Bancoul a stunning victory. Britain's highest court ruled that deporting Diego Garcia's native population was illegal. But the euphoria didn't last long, because the court didn't propose a remedy, neither money nor what the people wanted most, to return home and the right to earn a living on the base.
Do you think, given the security situation right now, the war on terrorism, do you think they will ever really be able to go back to Diego Garcia?
The position of the islanders is that they never objected to the US base on Diego, but the islanders are extremely bitter that they are denied employment on the base, precisely because they come from there.
Especially since the base employs several thousand civilian workers from other countries, like the Philippines. Benoit Emilien used to recruit those civilian employees.
That's me again with the commanding officer.
Your job was to find workers to work on that top-secret American base. Were native Diego Garcians ever allowed to go back and work there?
Definitely no.
Why not?
I was given instruction to be careful. They don't want any kind of claim or demonstration.
And when Benoit tried to talk to his American friends on the base about Diego Garcia's original inhabitants, he found the subject was taboo.
It's like this, they stay away, like...
they don't want to know?
No, they don't want to know.
And they don't want visitors. When the islanders asked to visit their family graves, they were told in this letter from the British government that the US had to grant permission. It reads, "We have consulted the US authorities who have confirmed that they cannot agree to it at the present time." So last August, the islanders appealed directly to President Bush. But the Bush administration said it was Britain's call. This letter reads, "Because of the vital role the facility plays in the global war on terrorism, British authorities have denied permission to visit Diego Garcia. We concur and support the decision." Qasem Youtim, the former president of Mauritius, had written the letter to President Bush on behalf of the islanders.
So both sides are essentially passing the buck.
That's what we're doing. That's exactly what we are doing. I think that it is most, not only inhuman, but illegal,
they should never have been expelled from their land.
We tried repeatedly to interview anyone from the British and American governments about this affair, but no one from the British Foreign Office, the US State Department, or the Pentagon would even talk to us. But Dan Urish did talk to us. Back then, he was the American commander on Diego Garcia. In retrospect, do you think that they were treated fairly, these people?
You know, I have a great sympathy for them. I think the British are the ones that are probably legally responsible for it. Morally, the U.S. certainly has an interest in seeing that things are made right for the islanders.
And until that happens, Olivier Bancoul, Jeanette Alexis, and the rest of the islanders say they'll never give up. Now they are suing both the United States and British governments for compensation and the right to return.
It's an important base, I agree. But at the same time, they should have realized that people are also important.
Do you think you have any chance taking on America, taking on Britain?
The Americans and the British always talk about the champions of human rights. There we are. What they did to us, they should rectify it. They should look after us. You know, they should do what they preach.
How's it going, everyone? Just a quick one right here. We possibly have an update on what happened to Malaysia Flight 370. Now, this was just released 18 hours ago from some sources that I read online. Some have just released this information 2 hours ago. Blockbuster, this is accurate and now 100% confirmed. Hijacked IBM engineers successfully dialed out of Diego Garcia. An engineer that worked for IBM, what's his name again here? Excusez-moi. I wrote it down right here. Where is it? Oh yeah, Philip Wood. He's an engineer with IBM who managed to take a picture from his iPhone. Now the picture is black, but if you understand how iPhones work, when you take a picture, it encodes what they call EXIF information. I guess it includes GPS data, the ISO that the picture was taken of, and some information that can even be used in court. For example, if your iPhone is stolen and the person who stole your iPhone takes a picture, they can locate your iPhone, or at least where the picture was taken from, through GPS data and everything. Well, this guy right here, he took this picture, and he even said it himself. I have been held hostage by unknown military personnel after my flight was hijacked. He was blindfolded. They put a sack over his head or something. I work for IBM, and I have managed to hide my cell phone in my ass during the hijack. Okay. I've been separated from the rest of the passengers, and I am in a cell. My name is Philip Wood. I think I've been drugged as well, and I cannot think clearly. Now, he took a picture. I guess they put a sack over his head, and they're saying, I'll post the article below so you can read it. And they're saying that he managed to pull his iPhone out, an iPhone 5, and through voice commands, he managed to send that message and take a picture. And the GPS data points to his iPhone being 3 miles off of Diego Garcia Island. Now, if you look at what Diego Garcia Island is, and I had no idea what it was, to tell you the truth, before I heard this information and I looked it up. It is an island that is, it's a tropical footprint-shaped coral atoll located south of the equator in the central Indian Ocean. But the United States Navy operates Naval Support Facility, Diego Garcia, ... Okay, well, yeah, United States Navy, we know where that is going. British Indian Ocean Territory, and if you look at right here, I have the map up, excuse me. This is the island. As you can see, it has a big airport, and I'm working with one hand here. There you go. If you zoom in, you can see what looks like to be bombers or something, some form of aircraft, some type of aircraft. I really don't know what those aircraft are, but if you zoom out, now let me, oops, yeah, I'm going into space here. Oh my God, where is it? I lost it. Excuse me, I'm working with one hand right here. All right, there we go. Yeah, the island over here, the Diego Garcia Island, is right off of this part of the globe right here. And the plane disappeared around here in the Gulf of Thailand. They said it turned around and it was either heading towards Iran, but it had enough fuel in it to at least land in Iran. That was one theory that they had, but if you look at it, it's completely possible that this plane, after being hijacked or whatever, it was rerouted here and landed on this island. Now, excuse me again. There we go. I'm working with one hand here with the camcorder. But this is pretty interesting because if all of this is true, this man is still alive, at least was still alive at the time he sent this message, which gives great hopes that the other passengers are still alive as well. And yeah, the 20 people from that company that was developing a very advanced semiconductor, from what I understand, there's also reports online that the Rothschilds wanted to take control of this semiconductor technology, and I wonder if that falls into some recent reports of Russia issuing an international arrest warrant on the Rothschilds and the Soros. I don't know. But however, just some food for thought right here. I really hope that these people are still alive, and with this new information, we're going to get them back home to their families, and we're going to really start to understand what's going on here. Links below. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. I think we can finish up with the last clip, and this is the big one of the night. It's from the hacking group Anonymous. Some very good friends of mine in the UK. They are anonymous, of course, so I don't have any of their names. But this was issued from their international website.
Greetings world. We are anonymous. With the disappearance of those on Malaysian Airlines MH370, billionaire Jacob Rothschild becomes the sole owner of an important semiconductor patent. Coincidence? I think not. The mystery surrounding Malaysian airliner MH370 continues to grow with each passing day, and Mr. Rothschild is smack dab in the middle. Illuminati member Rothschild is believed to have exploited the airliner to gain full patent rights of an incredible KL03 microchip. The US technological company Freescale Semiconductor, who shared its rights with Rothschild, had 20 senior members on board who had just launched a new electronic warfare gadget for military radar systems the day before the plane went missing. The semiconductor company develops microprocessors, sensors, and other technology, including standalone semiconductors, that perform dedicated computing functions. But the questions that arise are, why were there so many Freescale employees traveling together? What were their jobs? Their mission? And did the employees carry valuable cargo? With all the power our elite carry, why couldn't they track down the missing plane? Of the 239 people aboard flight MH370, most of them were engineers, working to make the company's chip facilities in Tianjin, China, and Kuala Lumpur more efficient. These were people with a lot of experience and technical background, and they were very important people, Hawes said. It is definitely a loss for the company. Mitch Hawes, Vice President of Global Communications and Investors Relations. According to the Freescale's website, operations for the company began in 1972 and covered an 8-hectare site that tests and manufactures microprocessors, digital signal processors, and integrated radio frequency circuits. Furthermore, it owns Freescale RF, which is involved in making solutions for aerospace and defense, including battlefield communications, avionics, HF radar, band L&S, missile guidance, electronic warfare, and identification IFF. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The Freescale shareholders include the Carlyle Group, whose past advisors have included ex-US President George Bush Sr. and former British Prime Minister John Major. Some of the company's previous clients include the construction firm owned by the family of Osama bin Laden, the Saudi bin Laden Group. What makes this claim stand out above all the other theories is the fact that so many highly qualified staff members were on board, and if the airliner crashed into the Indian Ocean, as recently reported, then this would validate the claim all the more. Considering the large passenger jet had flown undetected for 6 hours, the elites had to be involved, because they are the only ones who can accomplish such a task. According to World Truth TV, avoiding radar via cloaking technology has long been one of the objectives of the defense industry, and Freescale has been active developing chips for military radar. On its website, the company says its radio frequency products meet the requirements for applications in avionics, radar, communications, missile guidance, electronic warfare, and identification, friend or foe. The company announced that it was creating a team of specialists dedicated to producing radio frequency power products for the defense industry. They also announced it was releasing 11 of these new gadgets for use in high-frequency VHF and low-band UHF radar and radio communications. The company, Freescale, did not respond to questions from Express Online, including whether any of its missing employees had been working on the defense products. It neither provided any responses to the latest bizarre conspiracy theory being widely published on the comments sections of newspaper websites and other internet forums. Some comments read, "Have you pieced together the puzzle of missing Flight 370 to Beijing, China? If not, here are your missing pieces." 4 days after the Flight MH370 disappearance, semiconductor patent was approved by the U.S. Patent Office. Patent is divided in parts of 20% between 5 starters. One of the owners is the company itself, Freescale Semiconductor, Austin, Texas, USA, and the other 4 Chinese employees of the company, Pidan Wang, Zijin Chen, and Liang Zijing, all the Suzhou City. And they all were passengers of Malaysia Airlines plane that disappeared on March 8th, according to Eternity. It adds, "Here is your motive for the missing Beijing plane." As all 4 Chinese members of the patent were passengers on the missing plane. Patent holders can alter the proceeds legally by passing wealth to their heirs. However, they cannot do so until the patent is approved. So when the plane went missing, the patent had not been approved. Although a Freescale patent exists under number US 8650327, none of the names listed actually appear on the passenger manifest released by the Malaysian authorities. If the patent holder dies, the other owners share equally in dividends from the deceased. If 4 of the 5 patentees die, then the patentee left alive gets 100% of the patent. That remaining patent holder is the company Freescale Semiconductor. Who owns Freescale Semiconductor? The answer is Jacob Rothschild. British billionaire owns the company Blackstone, which in turn owns the company Freescale Semiconductors. Several speculations on the internet now are paying attention to this circumstance. The Rothschilds are a dynasty of financiers and international bankers of German Jewish origin. The family is from the 19th century, one of the most influential families of bankers and financiers of Europe. Is this just another coincidence? I don't think so. Rothschild is hiding evidence to gain the rights to this semiconductor. He wants power, and he wants his money. It may have taken 239 deaths to do it, but to him, that is just part of population control. In the end, he gets his money, his fame, and his power, all while the world remains silent. Or so they thought. Time to expose this fraud for who he really is. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. To all Rothschild's bloodline, we will be hunting all of you. Expect that.
Thanks for listening to the Truth Police Live with Andy Preacher from the UK and Timothy Spearman from Canada. Mondays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 5 p.m. UK time. Find the Truth Police radio show on Facebook. Visit Tim's website at www.shakesaspear.com or visit www.lulu.com. Search for Timothy Spearman and find his book Sailing the Seven Seas, Butterfly Dreams, and Odds on Favourite. Visit the station's website www.freedomtalkradio.co.uk or email the show at freedomtalkradio2013@gmail.com or Skype us at Freedom Talk Radio 1. Thanks for listening to the Truth Police.
freedomtalkradio.co.uk.
Let's go!
This is the most diverse, most amazing, one of the funniest radio stations you could ever listen to on the internet. I've heard so much stuff from the ups, the downs, the left, the right.
The politics, the non-politics, the schmolitics, whatever you want to call them.
It's great.
Well, Tim, you've heard all them clips. The one in Diego Garcia wasn't what I thought it would be, but I think, as you've commented, a very good history of how that became a military base. What do you think then to what's going on now? The IBM engineer and now the other stuff?
Well, we already did a segment about how the 5 patent holders of Freescale were the 4 Chinese nationals and the company which was owned by Jacob Rothschild. And I suggested on a previous show that the Rothschild-controlled intelligence services were behind this, and they have the wherewithal and the technology to pull it off. And so I would see them as major players in this event for 2 reasons. First of all, there's the patents for this company Freescale, which they might like to appropriate and get total control over. And then the other is that 20 of the passengers on board connected with the same company, Freescale, were also developing electric car technology, which would be not to the Rothschild liking because they're heavily invested in the petrochemical industry, and they, with the Rockefellers, control the Seven Sisters oil companies, Exxon, Shell, BP, etc. So there's the 2 motives right there for wanting to kill everyone aboard for the sake of getting rid of these 20 employees of Freescale. And they're ruthless, they're satanic. Now, in that last segment played German Jewish family. No, German Canaanite family, and not Jewish, posing as Jews. Never were, never could be, and never have been. I remember I walked into a lawyer's office to get assistance with a case related to getting my child back from South Korea. And we got on to the topic. I don't know how it came up. And he said, well, they're Jewish, aren't they? And he's Jewish himself, this particular lawyer. And you could tell that there was a little bit of strain in his voice, indicating that he worried that I might be anti-Semitic simply because I don't like the Rothschild family. Well, irrespective of whether the Rothschild family were or weren't Jewish, I would still not like them. That doesn't make me anti-Semitic. It just makes me someone who doesn't like crooks and Satanists, if you don't mind. Anyway, they can't be Jewish if they're Satanists. Now, can they? Any more than you could be Christian if you were a Satanist or Muslim if you were a Satanist, correct? Am I right on that, Andy?
Correct, totally.
So therefore, they're not Jewish. And even if they were of racially and in terms of racial ancestry Jewish, they're not Jews. So what's the big deal? How can you be anti-Semitic for not liking Satanist crooks that have hijacked the world? I don't see how that's anti-Semitic. You want to take me on and tell me I'm anti-Semitic, someone? You want to take off the gloves and we'll go at it. I'll be that. Because, sorry, I just don't like the Rothschilds. That's all. and I don't like Satanists, if you don't mind. And so anyway, that's my reading on it. I don't think they are racially Jewish either. I think they're Khazarian. My research tells me so. And name Meyer Amschel Bauer was the name of the original Rothschild, who ended up changing his name to Rothschild in honor of the satanic symbol he had on the door to his accounting office, which was in geometry terms the number of the beast, because it was a hexagram star consisting of 6.6 sides and 6 triangles. Now, some people call that the Star of David or the Seal of Solomon. I would go with maybe the Seal of Solomon, and I would go with the fact that it's a satanic symbol, but I would not go with the idea that it's the Star of David or a symbol of the nation of Israel in any way, shape, or form. Now, if you want to believe that, it is. You're free to believe what you believe, but I am also free to believe what I believe. And we at the Truth Police try to, root out the truth. We try to root out the lies, and we try to tell the truth as best we can. And Andy and I at least try our best to be honest. Don't we, Andy?
Yeah, we sure do, Tim. And moving on to another shocking story that is really close to my little heart of mine. And it's about the kids again, and parents who emotionally abuse their children could soon face up to 10 years in jail. In effect, what they're trying to do, if you make your children cry and somebody reports you to social workers, you are now emotionally abusing your children. It says parents who emotionally abuse their children could soon face up to 10 years in jail. The new proposals would make anything that intentionally harmed a child, physical, intellectual, emotional, social, or behavioural development a criminal offence. But it doesn't make a criminal offence the social worker's taken the child when there's no real reason. Anyway, parents who emotionally abuse their children could face prosecution for the first time under a new law called Cinderella Law. Maybe that's relevant. Cinderella Law. Starving offspring of love and affection could lead up to 10 years in prison in a move to be involved in the Queen's speech in June. So it's already had the royal assent, it sounds like it. Currently the law on child neglect, which affects as many as 1 in 10 children, covers physical harm only. Under the new proposals, anything that intentionally harmed a child's physical, intellectual, emotional, social, or behavioural development would be a crime. Offences could include deliberately ignoring a child, damaging their emotional growth by not showing them any love, and forcing them to see domestic violence. Police would be able to intervene early before children suffer physical or sexual abuse. It is hoped, in brackets it says. The Charity Action for Children said reform of Victorian child neglect laws will change lives. Sir Tony Hawkhead, the Charity Chief Executive, said, I've met children who have been scapegoated in their families, constantly humiliated and made to feel unloved. The impact is devastating and could lead to lifetime mental health problems and, in some cases, suicides. But they're not mentioning this now. That is from the newspaper now. Our leader of the charity Children's Community Heard.com, Maggie Tuttle, says, emotional abuse to a child will now become law, which can or may carry a sentence of up to 10 years in prison. Included in the new law is that families or carers do not show a child love and affection. This will also become a crime of an emotional abuse with a prison sentence. Social workers on allegations against families of emotional abuse or future emotional abuse will now have more powers to take children into care on allegations of no love and no affection. Perhaps the governments have made a deal with the prison service to fill up the prisons so that they will have more cheap labour for the outside. Companies such as Woolworths used to have all their garden furniture made in Pentonville Prison, and what the public are not aware of is Prindus, which is a prison industry. Burton's suits were also made by the prisons, and via Prindus the governments made mega bucks from the prisoners, who are cheap labour. Than last year in the news, the QC Alan Goldsack made the statement that all prisoners' children should be in the care system in a child's best interest. So let's question what is really going on. The research undertaken by the charity has had many reports from families from all over the UK with regards to contact with their children. We're being told by the social workers of what they're allowed to do and what you're allowed not to do and what you're allowed to say when you have contact with your child. With many families who have first had to sign a contract before the contact, with all contracts written up by the social workers to say you are not allowed to show any affection, emotions or love, and no tears, as this is an embarrassment to the child and that the child is too old for affections. But we, the social workers, will allow you one hug on entering or leaving a contact room, and should you not comply with the contact, then your contact will be stopped immediately, and so the families are damned if they do and damned if they don't. Whoever has given the powers to the social workers to enforce their own laws upon a nation are guilty in the eyes of the law, and until such time social workers are brought to account by the laws of the land, no child will have any rights to their families, with the loss of every children's human rights. If no one in power will bring the social workers to account, then it must be the people of the nation who will have to rise up to protect the children. Maggie Tuttle. Maybe we'll rise up in July, Tim, when the blockade of the UK motorways around London will happen. We have fantastic and phenomenal support. I didn't think such a mad idea was such a good idea. And yeah, we're going in leaps and bounds with that. We've got some great alternative media that Maggie's organising. We've got people attending in their dozens at the moment, which is very good. And yeah, it's all in a child's best interest to have contact and to be home with mum and dad, or grandparents in some cases. We're very happy to hear that there's a new law being passed in April that allows all adopted children in the UK to see their biological family again. That is subject to the agreement, the contract, and all going through courts. But it's a step, positive one, in the right direction for children and their families.
Yep, that's great, Andy. I'm hoping to come over there. I had a dream sequence last night that suggested I would be coming over there, and I think I woke up to a vision of some type of celebration over there. Oh,
there'll definitely be celebrations, and there'll be a walk on the pier, the beach. There'll be some proper fish and chips. We'll get rid of the girls, and we can have a boys' night out in one of the English bars with Brian Clare, if he can come down, and a couple of other people that can come for the day. So yeah, all fantastic stuff, Tim. Hopefully me, you, Brian, and your daughter Joanne, Maggie, and yeah, we could all have a week together as one good family.
Yeah, well, it would be a lovely time. I think it's going to happen. So I'm just trying to put the plan together.
Yeah, I've done your picture, Tim, and unfortunately, I know the listeners don't want to hear this, but the picture, when you blow it up, the actual image is scrambled, so the actual signature, sorry, is scrambled, so you can't actually see the author.
Okay, that's all right. We tried. Thank you, Andy.
Which is a shame, really, because it would have been nice to help.
No, definitely. And who knows, we might have made the archaeological discovery of the century if we discovered who actually painted that painting. But anyway, no worries. We did our best.
Yeah, I'm blowing it up now, and it's got squares on it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a way of popping it into Google with cut and pasting it, and maybe the author will come up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well. No big deal. So, what else do you want to talk about today?
Oh, I'm exhausted from that. I thought that was quite good.
I know. I am burnt myself. Just concentrating on that segment and trying to figure it all out was taxing enough.
Well, I think the truth points to the Rothschild, the semiconductor company. You know,
Yeah.
is this man from IBM? Is he in Diego Garcia? Certainly his phone is, if that's true. I mean, it was on Jim Stone's website, but it was also over before its news and some of the smaller mainstream newspapers and online editions. So only time will tell what the real truth is.
Sure enough.
It will make sense with Bill's theory that, but then again, no, it won't, because if he's alive, no, his phone's alive. So that could be another disinformation, because Bill's theory was, from what he read originally, was they took the passengers up to the 45,000 feet, they all died, the crew was still alive, or at least the people in the cockpit were. They went suddenly down to 23,000 feet, and then they seemed to have stabled off for another 6 or 7 hours. It could have landed in Diego Garcia because they wanted the plane for whatever reason, and they wanted the people dead for what they knew. So that's kind of all fits a little bit. And then what they're doing now is playing games with people's phones. It's only another theory. Another theory.
Mm-hmm.
The wreckage isn't finding anything. The black box is running out of battery power in the next few days.
Well, this is another thing, is that because I've been connected to this security field for a while, I find out things that the general public doesn't know. There's no need for a black box. It's obsolete technology. You are feeding from the while the flight is in flight, throughout the duration of the flight, it is sending data from the data recorder on board the flight to a data collection control center on the ground via a radio signal. So there is no reason for a black box, and for the very reason that the details of the flight are sent to the ground throughout the duration of the flight, I'm also suspicious that there are not alternate ways of tracking the flight while it is in flight, besides the transponder sending signals and having these signals picked up from the way lines on the ground. I don't think that that's the only way to track a flight, and there should have been some satellite tracking going on. I mean, if they can see what's written on a dime lying on the ground from outer space because of the optics of the satellite, then why the heck can't you find a flight deviated from its flight path and track it by satellite? I just don't buy it, Andy. I can't buy it. None of this story that's broken in the mainstream media passes the smell test. I'm not trusting any of the information. And given all the competing theories that have been put out there, I'm seeing it as black operations to conceal the truth by muddying the waters and confusing the issue to the extent that the public just says, oh God, another conspiracy that no one will ever figure out. I give up. Who cares? And they just tune out because they're sick of it. They know the game. They've been through it so many times. We've got, what is it now, 1 million different competing theories on what happened on 9/11 and what happened to JFK and so forth. I mean, every time there's a cover-up of something, you get a host of competing theories until you lose count of how many surface. And I believe that this is a sign that there's something that they're attempting to hide. You have to admit it is very, very fishy, pardon the pun, but it is.
Fishy, pardon the pond. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, surely even the battery power could last more than 4 weeks. I mean, we have big battery manufacturers over here, and they can power things for months. And then you said about the other tracking devices. Obviously, when a plane goes off course, there's got to be another way, because in intelligence and in government, what scenario do we have if a terrorist switches off all the transponders, all the different things that were switched off on that flight? What will we do as as a country to avoid a plane coming at us? They have to have an alternative way, don't they, of tracking that flight when there's always an answer to a scenario, basically, apart from the ones that hit you in the face, like 9/11. If that, well, it obviously wasn't real, but if it was real, that they would have had a scenario to deal with that, like they should have a scenario to deal with this sort of situation.
Well, there is, and they do, and that's why this doesn't pass the smell test. I mean, the Federal Aviation Administration in the United States has a protocol that even if a single passenger plane happens to go off course, they have to track it, and they send the Air Force up to see why it's deviated from its flight path. For the very reasons you just cited, that there could be a hijacking, and that hijacking of an aircraft could lead to something devastating in terms of a terrorist attack. So when a flight deviates from its flight path in the United States, the Air Force investigates. Now, NORAD would be able to track the position of the aircraft that's flown off course and would know its precise location at all times. And they would be able to know that, not just on American soil. They would be able to track any flight that deviates from its flight path internationally, I would assume. I know they could, because look, I mean, what was happening in the United States on 9/11 caused Canberra to have its surface-to-air missiles active and ready to go on the other side of the world. So if Australia can be on high alert because of something happening in the United States, then surely to heaven, the United States, with its advanced technology in terms of surveillance, would be able to track this missing flight and find its exact position. So the only thing that could explain why you couldn't track it is some type of cloaking device was used to make it disappear entirely, not just on radar, but to disappear entirely, like the Philadelphia experiment of many, many years ago.
It could be sitting on the moon before we know now.
Yeah, it's
No, but that's the whole thing, though. In the alternative media, a lot of the people on that flight was experts in making things disappear, and that's exactly what's happened to it. It disappeared.
Yeah. So if they are expert at that technology, those passengers that are on board, then wouldn't it make sense that they're maybe involved in a covert operation to experiment with the technology to see if it works? And additionally, the fact that it probably is on Diago Garcia, which is an American military intelligence base, would also tend to point in that direction, because mission accomplished, mission done, and plane now in safe haven on U.S. military intelligence turf. So I think they can accomplish an array of different objectives through one false flag operation, false flag emergency operation. What do you think, Andy?
Yes, I was multitasking. I think they can, yeah. It's all it all smells a little bit bully to me, bit of bullshit. Pardon my language.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's see what else is going on then before we...
Yeah, well, there's a story, fracking must start by end of year, says your Prime Minister over there. The PM wants Britain to reduce dependence on Russian gas. So Cameron says Britain has a duty to step up gas production. So he's endorsing the practice of fracking. Britain has a duty to step up fracking to reduce dependence on gas from Russia. He met with world leaders to discuss the crisis in the Ukraine and said the annexation of Crimea was a wake-up call for Europe about its reliance on Russian energy. Moscow supplies around a third of Europe's gas, much of it via pipeline through the Ukraine. And Mr. Cameron said some countries are nearly 100% reliant on Russian gas. He said he wanted some shale gas wells up and running by the end of the year to encourage the idea of self-sufficiency in energy.
Yeah, it's going fucking mad at the moment, because in every single coastal area around the UK, they want to dig up the ground and see what's down there, you know. And it literally is fucking mad. They're saying roughly that, you know, it's going to help this, that and the other. I'm not sure if they're talking about coastal erosion, but I know there's a lot of groups talking more about fracking than they are talking about the kids being taken and unlawfully being held. So yeah, it's fracking mad at the moment.
Well, it'll be an ecological disaster if they go ahead with it, and sinkholes will probably start appearing all over the UK, and God forbid, the island itself might sink.
Well, that's exactly what the anti-fracking people are saying. That test it out in one area, which at the moment they're doing in Lincolnshire, where I live, because it's very close to the North Sea and the oil fields. I know that may not have nothing to do with it, but it may be. You know what I'm like on certain subjects. I don't know what's going on, but for some reason, Lincolnshire, which is close to the North Sea, has a reason for them to frack here first. But if that works, and another area down in Cornwall, if that works, they're going to be doing all areas. And the criticism is, if they do that for the next 5 years, the UK's sunk.
Yeah, this is the worry.
It's a bit like a bathtub. The UK's a bathtub, and you just keep putting holes in it, and the water comes in, and you're gone.
Yeah.
I've got another plane story, by the way.
Okay. Well, they tried in Lancashire 3 years ago, and it had to be halted after 2 small earthquakes occurred, but they've now restarted it again. Exploratory drilling near the village of Balcombe in West Sussex last year was abandoned after the site was overrun by protesters who believed fracking could ruin the countryside and contaminate water supplies. Well, good on them. These protests do have an effect, Andy. They really do.
Yeah, March to Babicombe or whatever it's called in Sussex. It was one of the big anti-fracking demonstrations. How about this then, ladies and gentlemen? You may have noticed I'm your captain. We were hit by lightning. Pilots calmly announced as plane is struck, not by 1, not by 2, but by 3 bolts of lightning at once. The flight from Amsterdam to Birmingham was hit by lightning on Friday. Passengers heard a massive bang, but the plane landed as normal. Women photographing the storm caught a picture of 1 bolt striking. The aircraft's captain only told passengers afterwards what happened. A bright flash of light and booming noises in a cramped seat, thousands of feet in the air, would be enough to put even the most hardened flyers off. But passengers landed at Birmingham Airport on Friday afternoon were led by example as their Captain Cooley, like his name, Captain Cooley, steered them through 3 lightning blasts and left it until afterwards to calmly explain what happened. Passengers spoke of a massive bang as one of the bolts struck the body of the KLM service from Amsterdam, but the blast had no effect on the landing, which proceeded as normal to touchdown on time at 4:30 p.m. GMT. And after the plane, which was a Boeing 737, had touched down on the runway, the captain confirmed to his passengers that the service had been hit, saying simply, "Ladies and gentlemen, you may have noticed we were hit by lightning. Welcome to Birmingham International. You have a good day and onward journey." I know what I would be doing. If I hate turbulence when I'm flying, Tim. It really does, take that sort of hardened character away from you. You're sort of on your knees, literally. And because of turbulence or because of lightning or whatever goes on, when you're up in the air, they stop the alcohol. I need my alcohol to keep me going through the flight, or sometimes a coffee on short flights, but they shut everything down, you know, and it's very frustrating because you feel very, you know, yeah, you kind of, some people are scared, but you've got no choice but to ride the storm, whatever the storm be. And it's very annoying. And I've been on a flight with my mum from Dominican Republic and Joanne. Me and Joanne, we've been holding hands, and Joanne's been a bit upset. My mum sits there when she was alive, laughing her head off. She said, "Oh, it's only a bit of turbulence," but she doesn't realise that, you know, we've had this before, and it's not very nice. My mum sits there, you know, a second flight ever, saying, "No, it's only a bit of turbulence. Stop being baby," she says. "Drink your beer."
Well, think of how they must have felt in the RAF bomber raid that was 70 years to the day on March 29th, 2014. So that day marked the 70-year anniversary of the RAF bomber raid on Nuremberg. And 106 bombers were lost, 445 men lost during the raid. More than 700 bombers took part, and a large number of them were decimated on a night of clear skies and a full moon. Even the old pros had never seen carnage like that. Whole squadrons were being decimated before their eyes. Some aircraft simply exploded in midair, each one a thunderous firework packed with 3 tons of bombs, 1,500 gallons of aviation fuel, and there would be a total of 7 crew members on board. One gunner surveying the German countryside from the tail end of a Lancaster would describe his comrade's funeral pyre stretching 60 miles into the distance. Pilots not only had anti-aircraft guns, searchlights, and even night fighters equipped with a new and lethally effective secret weapon, but also the parachutes of chums who managed to bail out. For those who made it down in one piece, there were fresh dangers. That same week, 50 captured Allied airmen were shot on Hitler's orders for their part in the Great Escape. So that's about it. Thanks, Andy, for the show today. Very much. Thank you.
Yeah, where are we going? Is that current? So I was just finishing off with a Canadian sort of connection. Oh, that was posted today, but very strange. Huffington Post in Canada. There must be a Canadian connection to this. But the reason I wanted to read it before we go off air is it's North Korea fired more than 100 artillery rounds into South Korea waters as part of a drill on Monday, that's today, prompting the South to fire back. Officials, this is breaking news, officials in Seoul said, but the exercise appeared to be more saber rattling from Pyongyang rather than the start of a military standoff. The North had flagged its intentions to conduct the exercise in response to the United Nations condemnation of last week's missile launches by Pyongyang and against what it says are threatening military drills in the South by US forces. North Korea also accused the South of gangster-like behaviour at the weekend by abducting one of its fishing boats and threatening to retaliate. The South said it had sent the boat back after it drifted into its waters. More than 100 North Korean shells out of 500 or so fired. They landed in South Korean waters, prompting Marines from the South to fire back, with more than 300 rounds in the North waters defense officials in Seoul said. Seoul had scrambled F-15 fighter jets on its side of the maritime border. We believe the North's maritime firing is a planned provocation, an attempt to test our military's determination to defend the northern limit line and to get an upper hand in South-North relations. Some Korean Defense Ministry spokesman, South Korean Defense Ministry spokesman Kim Min-seok said. So they're just playing games at the moment, but it had a link to Canada, but it's right down the bottom. So I thought, yeah, they're playing games again in Korea.
Yeah, very dangerous game.
And the headline is actually UNLOVE, UN love. The Koreas exchange unpleasantries. Now, got your lovely daughter over there, so hope they don't start fighting.
Yeah, no, I know. Anyway.
And to just to finish it off, if you're in America, today's the last day for Obamacare sign-up. Dare if you care, or maybe just leave it alone. And the trouble is they have to sign up, don't they? That's the problem. But it's the last day. Okay, my good friend. Sorry if I brought too much information in all at once, but it's all good stuff, and we'll see everybody. The next show is on Wednesday night, Tuesday night with the music and bands show at 7 p.m. 2 p.m. Eastern, but on Wednesday, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. London, we have Kevin Annette, the Reverend Kevin Annette, with Stash, Laura and Troy, and we talk Kevin's update of what's happening in the European courts with the arrest of the Pope, and we talk common law. Back on Saturday, we have the Knights of Liberty show. Nothing planned, but an amazing show that I want everybody to listen to on Monday the 7th on the Truth Police next Monday. It's a Truth Police special with Andrew Porter. Now, Andrew Porter is a psychic surgeon. Now, you know, he's a psychic basically, but he's also spiritual, so he talks for the first hour spiritually about what he does, and the second hour we're going to have a live call-in, a one-off because it's relevant to the subject. After Andrew brings in his friends called Shen, or Chen, C-H-E-N. Chen is Chinese, and Chen is Andrew's psychic surgeon. It's an amazing thing that I've never heard in my life, but he's definitely, well, he's 100% as far as I'm concerned. So Chen will talk through Andrew's voice, and he will probably talk to myself or talk to Tim, and he may feel things, you know, and talk to us all. So it's a good show, that one, Tim, the psychic surgeon.
And when is it again?
Next Monday. It's going to be awesome.
Oh my God! What?
7th of April. 7/4 is 11, and so on.
No way. So this is happening on our show.
Yep.
My God, man, I'm looking forward to that one.
So we have a normal guy coming on talking about, you know, what he does on his website, what he does to help people when it comes to spiritual. He also can tell when ghosts are in houses and how to get rid of them, that type of guy. But then the Chinese guy is coming through his voice, and he said it's not made. He says, I asked, you know, Chen to come into my body and take over. And although it's got a British accent as such, you know, a southern British accent from Somerset, it's actually the way he talks is very Chinese, or the lingo that he gives. So it's very, very good. And we're trying to encourage people. But I did say to Andrew that maybe with me and Tim here, he can do a bit of psychic stuff on us.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. I would really love that.
Yeah, so the psychic surgeon next Monday the 7th on the Truth Police. But for today, Tim and Andy wishes you all a good day.